welcome everybody. We're just opening up, but we're expecting a few more people, so I'll wait for a little bit for them to join, if that's okay, and then we'll begin.
Yes, hello from me. I'm Elaine Quinn. For people that don't know me, as you can tell, I'm not Leanne. I'm stepping in for Leanne for the day, and so hopefully I can muddle through. Andrew's smiling there. I won't do Leanne's job, but I'll do my best to move this forward because Leanne can't be with us today, unfortunately. And also apologies for the late notice, the fast turnaround for this Zoom call, but we just wanted to get something in as quickly as possible. So thanks to everybody for making the time available at short notice. So thank you.
I don't know if we want to use this time of maybe people introducing themselves to Andy. Just say where you're from and your name. Okay.
All right. I'll pick on Andrew to start with. Andrew, can you unmute and just introduce yourself and your business and how long you've been a member of Nominet?
Hello, I'm Andrew Bennett from Netistral Limited. I've been a member since 2005 and I'm standing in the UK RAC election, which ended yesterday. So hopefully, if elected, I look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Andrew. Simon, come to you next.
Sorry, I just realised I was trying to get the sound on. I had my headphones disconnected while I was waiting to join, sorry. So I've missed all the introduction apart from hearing what Andrew said momentarily. But I'm Simon, I run a small company called Spectralise. We're a web development company. I'm not sure if you asked anything else.
I just, how long you've been a member of Nominet?
Probably about 5 years now.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Gay, can we come to you? I think you're muted, I think, still.
Yeah, I was trying to get the button to work. Yes, my name is Gayakat. We've actually been members of Nominet probably right from the very start. I and some others, and I'm just sort of like what we do is less related to the domain names that we actually hold. So we're not typical, I guess, compared to some of your other members, but there are good reasons for that. So yeah, I've been around for a very long time, seen a lot of changes, quite interested to finding out what's going to happen next, because I was one that supported the extraordinary general meeting that was called a while ago. So yeah, really keen on finding out how that's going on, and if I don't get another chance to say anything, I'm a little bit disappointed in the current diversity of the board. But I'm going to shut up now and let someone else introduce themselves. Sorry.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for that, Gay. Can I pick on Steve Wright now? Say hello. Hi, Steve.
Good afternoon, everyone. Steve Wright, I'm COO at 4D Data Centers, and I've just recently stepped down from the Links board, where I was a non-exec for 9 years, and also chair and senior independent director during that period.
And how long have you been a member of Nominet? Sorry.
I think the first tag was 98, 99-ish, so 22 years.
Okay.
Seen it through the rise, the bubble, and now obviously the past 10 years of everyone thinking that websites are really, really important nowadays, compared to 20 years ago when it was like, oh, the website's offline. Okay, we'll get to that at some point.
Quite, yes, definitely in the can't live without category. Thanks very much. William, hello, can we come to you? Can you just say hello and a little bit about your business and how long you've been a member of Nominet? Hang on, I think you're on mute still. Oh, still. William, I think we'll come back to you because I think you're still on mute. Let's go to Cyprian. Morning. Can you say hello a little bit about your company for Andy's benefit and how long you've been a member of Nominet, please?
Hi, Andy. Hi, everyone. I've been a member for a couple of years now. I'm standing for the UK RAC. I'm a self-managed registrar and what you would consider a domain investor.
Thanks very much. Okay, next is Susanna. Morning, Susanna.
Hi,
If you missed the start, we're just asking people just to sort of introduce themselves, say hello, a little bit about the business and how long they've been a member of Nominet.
Yeah, hello everybody, especially people new to Nominet. I've been a member of Nominet for 2 years. I'm what you call an independent member, I guess. I don't do it for commercial reasons. I've had a long-term 20-year interest in internet governance. I'm particularly interested in what you call the at-large movement and the interests of ordinary registrants. But equally, I've taken an interest in the way Nominet operates as well. And like Cyprian, I'm a candidate for the UK Registry Advisory Council. So just interested to see how things are progressing here in what I hope is going to be restored as a not-for-profit company rather than profit for a purpose.
Thanks, Susanna. Greg, I don't know if you're around and want to say hello. If you want to, can you come off mute if you want to do that? Oh, maybe not. Okay, let's try Scott and then we'll get cracking. Scott, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, morning everyone. I'm Scott. How long have I worked with Nominet? I've been with quite a few major internet-based hosting companies throughout my career. In the last, since 2005, I think I've been a solo independent, only an actual tag holder with Nominet for about 3 years, I think, maybe a bit less than that. So yeah, I've been around the Nominet world for a long time. But it's hopefully nice to see some new blood coming into the organisation. So let's see what the future holds.
Okay, great, thank you. And I might return a bit later to people that haven't had a chance to do an intro, but I think for now, we're joined obviously by Andy Green, who is our new chair, and our non-executive director, Stephen Page, is also on this call. So I think without further ado, let's hand over to Andy.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really good. It is short notice. I'm going to be doing a lot more member engagement over time, but I did want to make sure I had some direct contact with members in, if not quite the first 24 hours, at least the first 27 hours of becoming chair of Nominet. I am a long-term tech person. I thought I wandered into technology having been a chemical engineer when I was 30. That's a long time ago. And over that time, I've been involved in many different parts of the industry. I suspect that some people on my team were on the first board of Nominet. I'm not quite sure. I have to go back and look at the history books, but I was running the ISP in the UK for BT for over that period when it was founded, launching broadband and sort of establishing the fixed monthly rate that people are so used to, which was in those days not obviously what was going to happen. People were still paying dial-up charges and something called free serve, which meant you get it free internet service. So it was all quite exciting and Wild West in those days, as many of you will know. So, you know, and then I went on to run BT Global Services, which was a big B2B operation across the world, and took the BT board through the idea of investing in an MPLS network and promised them I would fill it over time and make money from it, which we did manage to do, but it was more interesting than we thought when we wrote the business case, I would think. And after that, I ran Logica, which is an IT services company. And it was, I noticed we're interfering with the opening ceremony of the Tokyo Games today, but I do remember that it was at the time of the London Games that I sold Logica to CGI in Canada and started my plural career. By that stage, plural career just means I do lots of jobs and interfere in lots of people's lives in different ways. But at that time, I was on the board of a company called Arm Holdings. Arm, a really interesting Cambridge-based company that effectively hold the design for the architecture that sits, chip architecture design that sits behind both Android and iOS, and therefore, you know, a really important part of the technical infrastructure of the world, let alone the UK. Fantastic research-based company out of Cambridge. When I sort of got my feet under the table on what I was going to do, I decided to split my time really half and half between supporting the technical development of the UK and doing some commercial jobs. And so I was already I had been the chair and was still the vice chair of eSkills, which was the sector skills council for the digital sector. I became chair of the Digital Catapult, which is an intervention. If you've ever been there at Euston Road, it's a fantastic place. An intervention on innovation in UK digital area. And I also continued, as I'd taken up at Logica, to be president of UK Space, which meant I chaired the sector council for the space industry alongside the minister of the day. So I've done that, and I've done a whole range of other board roles which are less relevant to Nominet, but I've been involved, as I say, in the tech sector very strongly over a long period of time. When the Nominet situation came to my attention, which, you know, via the recruitment process, and I was really struck by how important to the UK digital economy Nominet is, and the fact that clearly things had gone you know, badly awry, and we had got to a situation of very significant lack of trust between different stakeholders within Nominet. And, you know, I decided I would see whether I can help out and support bringing Nominet, which I think is a really well-run registry. I mean, it's, you know, it's respected around the world. I think it has very good people. And we need, I think, to bring it back to being something that members can be proud of, as well as you know, it being a well-run operation. And it's clear that the communication between the company and members had broken down. The EGM was a very significant shock to the system. It's very unusual to see such large-scale changes all at once in something that is so crucial and important to the UK economy as a whole. So you know, it felt to me something that it was worth spending time and using, you know, the experience and background I've got in bringing people together and getting people comfortable and focused together on a clear direction. Because I feel it's a really important part of the UK's national life, and therefore, yeah, I was very attracted to do it. Having obviously, I've been doing some due diligence, and therefore coming up with a plan is quite difficult right at the beginning, but I felt it was really important to get out to members right from the beginning some commitments about things that we would get on and do. And I set out 6 streams of work, which I will report back to the AGM in the autumn on to members, so that they know the progress we've made and how far we've got with everything. I'm not sure, you know, coming in new, you're never quite sure how long things are going to take, but, you know, in principle, we're going to have real progress. I'm confident of that on all these issues. One of which is, you know, we have the core registry business when we do a number of other important things, and we need to look at those and make sure we have a clearly executable plan to make sure that those are not a drain on members' resources. I need to look at that, need to understand that, and make sure we do that. We need to look at the price of domains. We need to look at what the long-term sensible cost base for the business is, which includes pay, but also includes just generally the cost base of the organization, and look at how wholesale prices should develop over time, looking at how it compares with an efficiently run operation across the rest of the world, all those other things. We need to look at reserve funds. I mean, the company's been fantastic in its investment policies and has created an enormous amount of money that's sitting there in our reserve funds. We have some technical debt, we have some other issues which we need reserves for and properly need to be spent. I mean, look at all that, and we need to come back and talk about where we think the reserves should go. They can't keep going up at the rate they have been going up, that's for sure. And then and talk to members about what we might do with those reserves. You know, we have a very restricted set of articles. So we're not allowed to give it back directly or indirectly to members. So we've got to work out what we're all going to do about that and how we can think about that. We need to look at remuneration policy, and I'm really delighted about Ava joining. She's got real serious remuneration experience. I think, you know, this is a company that needs to have good people. It's a highly technical company that needs really well run so that registrants can be confident that their services will be up all the time and running really well. And you know, which is important for registrars as well as their customers. And so Ava will take us through a piece of work on remuneration, and we'll look at that. We need to look at public benefit spending. I mean, the thing that surprised me most when I analysed was the sort of sense that the surplus was growing, the cost of the organisation were growing, and yet the public benefit spending was declining, and it didn't make any sense to me, and it's not, I think, right. And we need to come back to members with a clear statement about where we are on public benefit. And it seems to me right that the public benefit spending should be spent on the UK digital economy and creating an environment in which members and members' customers can thrive. You know, doing the things which help the development of the digital economy is going to be the best thing, I think, for members and members' customers in terms of that sort of area. And then finally, you know, we clearly need to re-energize the engagement between members and and the company. You know, this is classic. You know, we have lots of these events. We've got 2,400 members, about a dozen people turn up, and we have lots of things to think about. There are people who would like us to change those things, and we need to listen to all those people. So those are the 6 things I've set out in my note to members. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to work pretty hard over the next couple of months between now and when we get ready for the AGM. Absolutely priority is overseeing that work. I started all that last night, deep into the night with the team, making sure that there's real streams of activity and that we're working hard on those things. Now, having got that started, listening to members, this is the first opportunity I'm going to have to listen to members. I'm really interested in listening to members and hear their views. They're very varied views that we have across the membership. And obviously, it's very important that we move to a position where we have a permanent CEO who's running the organization, and we can all have confidence that we are driving the organization forward with the operational excellence it needs and with the much improved sense of member relations. That's what I'm going to spend my time on. I'll as I said, report back to everybody at the AGM, and I think probably that's enough from me, I would think, because I really would like to hear from you, either comments or questions, whatever suits you. So I will hand back over to Elaine to be master of ceremonies, and we'll get on with listening.
Okay, everyone. So it's time over to you. If you'd like to sort of raise your hand, if you'd like to ask Andy a question, we'd like to limit it initially just to 1 question per person, just so we can get through everybody, and then we can return back if there's more time. So who's got a question? Cyprian, can we come to you? Can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Thanks.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Andy. Let me start off by welcoming you to Nominet.
Thank you.
And I would like to say that I've only been a member for 2 years, but the members I've engaged with are a great bunch and quite diverse backgrounds as well. There are CEOs, there are builders, there are designers, and all sorts in between. What I would like to say is I think over the past few years, the trust in the Nominet board has been eroded quite significantly, and inevitably we are extremely skeptical about any decision coming from the board. So it will take time to rebuild that trust, and in general, actions speak louder than words. But you know, the right words also are important, and I've noticed in your letter to members that you've like the previous board chair and the previous CEO, you've avoided using the term non-profit. Can I ask why that is, and why these two simple yet very meaningful words seem to be like kryptonite to you?
Well, because I think this is firstly, I think non-profit is a very difficult thing to work to. You know, organizations like this, which need to make very significant technical investments, you know, have to be managed in a way that is able to sustain them over the period of time. You know, so you have to make sure that you have the capability to do that, and therefore profit non-profit is a really difficult concept because it's an accounting concept. And secondly, because, you know, I think it's been very clear in the development of Nominet over a long period of time that it's had a public benefit aspect to it. And so, you know, the idea that we are not going to continue to contribute to the development of the digital economy is something that is a long way away from all the decisions that have been taken through up to date. So the idea of a public benefit company, I think, is to be saying that there are only, you know, when you think about the cost of if you think about the revenues coming in, they do a number of things. They enable the organization to deliver the services that it offers to its various customers. They enable it to ensure they can do that over a sustainable period of time, and they contribute to public benefit. There is nothing else, and this is one of the conundrums I'm having talking to everybody at the moment. There is no other place for it to go. So if you end up taking too much money out of that whole system, you just grow your reserves, which is what's happened to us. But I think it is not right to say zero profit, because what are we talking about? You know, it's almost an impossible thing to run to. But for me, the reason for talking about a public benefit organization is, you know, we need to provide value for money services to people. We need to make sure they are provided to a very high standard, and they can continue to be provided to a very high standard going forward. And what surplus there is above that is for the public benefit and should be spent for the public benefit. There's nowhere else for it to go. Now, you will also have seen that I believe in doing that, because of the particular position Nominet plays, we have to take a very high regard to running efficiently and effectively and with the right type of cost base. And, you know, that's what these reviews are about, is making sure we've all got all those things in line. So I would not be able to explain, I can explain that to you, what I mean. I don't know how to explain a not-for-profit.
Okay, because I view the term not-for-profit not as an accounting term, but rather a guiding principle where you're not driven by profits, but instead, you know, you're driven by that public good, public benefit.
So I don't think we'll probably have too much between us then. We'll find out over time, of course, because I agree with you about the trust point, whoever made it, by the way, it's huge issue. And I absolutely expect to be judged on actions, not words. I think all of that's right. I mean, so it may just be a language question that we need to get to as we develop these debates. But I just wanted, I hope I've set out what I mean. There is nowhere for the money to go, right? Other than to public banks running the service correctly. Sorry?
In excessive remuneration, that's where it went.
Absolutely, and we must avoid those sorts of things, and I'm committed to avoid those sorts of things.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Okay, thanks both. Susanna, can I come to you and ask you to, we'll unmute you, and can you ask a question? Thanks.
Thanks, Elaine. Andy, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. I'm a nurse, and emotional intelligence is really important in my work, obviously. And reading you, I like what I see today and in your video. I think you are an emotionally intelligent person, and that's very reassuring, okay? I'm not trying to patronize by saying that. I'm trying to be soft and honest because I take a very hard line on a lot of issues. In terms of member engagement, I think you've recognized, and you can see today, that it's not that far-reaching. I think that things can go better than this. But the trouble is that a lot of members, they feel, what's the use? We're not listened to. Nominet will just carry on doing what they always want to do anyway, according to their own agenda. Now, we're about to see the launch of the UK Registry Advisory Council, and that is an opportunity to turn one-way engagement, top-down engagement, into two-way dialogue and discourse. I think it's potentially very constructive. One of the problems with the Members Hub at the moment is that it's a one-way information stream. Nominet gives out notices and news, but there's no input in the reverse direction inside the hub by the members themselves. It's a one-way stream. Now, you're coming new and you've got huge expectations and burdens on you, and I don't expect you to have a magic wand. But with regard to the UK RAC, there are 3 test issues which I think will demonstrate the commitment of Nominet and of your regime. I say your regime, the regime you had, with regard to genuine engagement. The first is that it's been proposed that the chair of the member of the council should be parachuted in top down as a board director to kind of oversee us and be the chair. And given that this is a democratic process of representation of members, I think that is totally unacceptable. I'm like I say, I think I'm a soft person, but you have to raise hard facts. And I do believe that at the first meeting of the new council, the elected members on a democratic basis should be allowed to choose their own chair as an act of self-determination of the council. Otherwise, there's going to be skepticism that it's top-down control and filtering and containment.
So should we, Andy, maybe you can come back on that in terms of
look,
the RAC.
Susanna, firstly, I have read your piece and I understand it. I mean, there are a few little things I'd like to say. Firstly, it's very important I don't answer today. I mean, the council needs to come up with its conclusions, and the council needs to work together. And we don't know who's on the council. I know because of the way the voting's gone, you're going to be on the council, but we don't know today. And therefore we should wait until the council's met and respond to these things. I mean, my point here is that, as I understand it, and I am learning, so be careful, we had a design group of members who designed this thing, and some things were left free for discussion and some things were kind of fixed into the governance. And we need to look at all that and understand all that. But I think the first thing to do is for the group to meet together. If these are the things that people are really wanting to push forward, we should we should address them, and we're going to have to consider how you address them. If it was designed in and it's in the terms of reference, how will we manage that? I don't know, but we will need to constructively engage and see what happens on that. I would make the point that I've worked with a lot of advisory councils and groups over the years. This connection to the board is essential. I mean, because advisory councils advise. In the end, the board each board member has a legal responsibility. They have to take accountable stakeholders, all the other things that are in all the acts. So we have to take the advice in, consider it within the framework of the responsibilities we have, and then respond or not. So if you end up with no connection sort of there, I think it's a real difficulty. So those are some of my thoughts. But my main point here is, I think we need to get the council members together. They need to come back with these ideas. If they're their ideas, that's what comes out. And then we have to constructively engage. What I hope is we don't only do that, because I think we've got some urgent questions where we need advice. So I hope there is time also to spend time looking at things like what we do about, I forgot what they're called now, dropped from, not somebody told me, but
expiring domains
and things like that, where we know there's a lot of angst in the membership and we need advice on what we should do about that, all these other things that we need advice on. So I hope there's time for both, considering those things as well as the other things, because we're going to have to make progress on all these things. But we don't have to listen. I mean, when the council gets together, we're going to have to hear what the council says. We're going to have to listen carefully. We have to engage. And what I can't tell at the moment is what's easy, because as I say, some things I think have been left flexible in what the members have designed, and other things are less flexible. And I haven't had time to go into that in detail yet, Susanna.
Andy, thank you, and you're very well informed. I'm impressed that an email I sent yesterday you've already read. That is very impressive. On the non-soft side, if I was to front you back just very briefly, and I don't want to go on to my other 2 points because I want to give other people the chance to speak, but surely the question of feedback to the board is a bit spurious if you're implying that therefore the chair of the council has to be a director, because you could get feedback from a board director as an observer, and you could get feedback in addition to that director from the actual chair of a UK RIC. And it's not a necessity that for some reason the chair, who actually, in what's been proposed so far, would have the powers to close meetings if we diverge off approved subjects and so on, should be a director. And the other thing was that the design team who designed the UK RIC, which was incidentally a Nominet executive and board initiative, it wasn't a members initiative, but the design team were not elected. And they've done actually, I think they've done a really good job in many respects, but they weren't representative. And I think the issue is that if you want members to be on board and to really engage, they've got to believe that they're not being controlled. Otherwise, they just sign off because it's not worth the effort. And so I think the democratic foundation of this new council is essential. And that isn't just one member, one vote for the candidates who get elected, but it's also extending that democratic process so that the representation of the members continues in the way the council operates and the way it self-determines and the way it publishes its own material on the members hub, because otherwise the members hub is just a one-way information stream, and the way it moderates.
So we can look at all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to point out that the person who the members have proposed as chair is also elected. I mean, it is a member director. So, but look, Susanna, I need to listen to you as a group, and I will
absolutely. And I think that's absolutely right.
And I am open-minded about how we go through that. I mean,
just flagging it up. That was all.
Right. So
thank you, Andy.
Cheers.
Good luck.
Oh, thanks, Susanna. I'll move us on now. So I'm going to come to Scott, who's been patiently, he's had his hand raised for a long time, and then Gay, and then Andrew. So Scott, can you ask your question?
Sorry, I missed you on the screen there, Scott.
It's not a problem. Sitting quietly, I don't mind. what I was going to ask is, it almost feels like over the years, Nominet's kind of stepped away from its involvement on the world stage with like ICANN and other large registry bodies. Is that something that you're looking at putting us back on the global stage for?
This is something I think that we again need to talk about a bit more. It's not in the list, but I was encouraged to see that we have regathered all that professional expertise about DNS and the workings of the internet into a single team. This is prior to me arriving in Nominet. I think that's a good first step, but I do think I share your instinct that things have moved and that we need to re-energize that part. Part of the reason I talked in the note about talking about technical outreach to members is I think one of the things I'd like to see is how can we get input on what's most useful for members for us to go engage on the global stage and on the new standards and other things. You know, what is it that we could be doing that would be valuable to members in that whole area is kind of, there's the subtext behind those few words in my note about looking at some, whether we need some technical advice, because I do think, you know, in my feeling is there has been you know, a move here to sort of turn this into a commercial organization. And I think some very important things got left behind. And one of them, I think, is that leadership in standards and in global influencing that can help members with their roles in their business. So if that's what you're talking about, Scott, I think I share your concern about that.
Yeah, it's pretty much hit the nail on the head. You know, we sort of stepped back and sort of went, oh, VeriSign and ICANN and everybody else, you make the rules up and we'll just follow you later. Whereas, you know, Nominet used to be one of those driving factors and one of the forces in helping structure those rules and those the policies of how everything was secured. Well, not secured, but you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And I just feel we've kind of stepped back from that. We are a global player and we should be back there.
I can see Steve agreeing that, but adding the policy point, the global policy point.
Yeah.
So look, you're definitely going to be engaging with people on this issue. I think it's a really important one. One of the things I've been trying to say to the internal team is, you know, growth is important for people in an organization. They need to feel that there is growth and there's change, but it doesn't have to be, you know, revenue growth. We can grow our organization by growing the impact we have on society in the UK, by growing our influence on international standards, by growing in other ways that are not, this is kind of why I'm kind of getting away a bit from this profit idea. You know, I think we need to think about what is it that is the growth story for the members and for Nominet, which isn't, you know, I think running off into the wild blue yonder on, you know, buying this and doing that, but is much more relevant to what members and the UK needs.
Still unmuted. Yep, brilliant. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks, Scott. Okay, Gay, can we come to you?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Nominet is in a very privileged position. They exist as a monopoly, and one of the concerns I think that's been at the back of everyone's minds has been in the past that the members feel that the monopoly position has been abused and that the membership has been taken advantage of in terms of, if you want a UK domain, because we want to do X, Y, and Z, you are going to have to pay this extra fee. Now, I'm not only talking about fees, of course, but I don't want to make this question too long. What I would like to see, and I'd be interested in your views about this, Andy, and indeed anyone else's, is that Nominet has a statement of how Nominet will protect the membership from Nominet's real or perceived abuse of a monopoly position that in fact they hold. Logica, BT, some of the other companies that have been mentioned so far have competition, and we are benefits from the challenges that are overcome in terms of companies facing competition. Nominet in the UK domain space has none. And so I'd be very interested in what are your views concerning having a formal statement somewhere within the, I can't remember the term I'm looking for, but something in, I don't want to say mission statement, but something in the, no, it's gone, that Nominet will endeavour to ensure that never again is their monopoly position abused.
Yeah, so look, I don't quite accept the word monopoly position. Unfortunately, I was at BT at the time when you might have called BT a monopoly too. So
yeah, I'm aware.
But I mean, because there is competition from .com and things like that. But I accepted the thrust of what you're saying entirely. So you know, we have a responsibility because we have control over a particular segment of the naming thing to show we're delivering value for money to members. And we need to come out with a method of doing that. Because of my background, I've thought in those very early days of BT, I've had many sort of thoughts about that. But I noticed because of the lack of trust, which I completely understand, many people are reading the fact that I wrote in global pricing comparators into my note to mean I'm about to put the prices up. That's not the point. The point is, you know, one good test of whether you're running an efficient operation is to look across the world and say, where do your prices fit versus other people who are doing the same sort of thing in other places? And if you find it's high, then you absolutely need to drive down in the right direction. I think there is just privately, I could not conceive of us coming out of any of the reviews with a price increase at the moment. So, well, not privately, it's publicly now, but you know, that's not what my note was meant to be talking about. But so I'm trying to get at exactly the same point. How are we going to show that we are delivering fair value for money to members? One way to do that is to look across the world, look at at other places. There are other ways too, which is to give price commitments into the future, all those sorts of things. And I want to study and think about all those things. Gabe, before we finish with you, could I come back to your point about diversity, please? Because I forgot to pick it up in my introduction. You know, I'm a real champion about diversity, and I was nothing to do with me, but I was really pleased that Stephen had chosen Ava alongside me. There's nothing I can do about my own diversity. I'm a grey old man, a white man, and that's life. And but you know, I've spent a huge part of my career on gender diversity and moving increasingly onto the ethnic diversity debate. I might argue that I was a bit late on that and criticise myself for it, but we actually have quite an issue, quite a significant issue. Of course, we only have 4 appointed board members. We have then the executive team, which we have some sway over, and then the members elect 4. So, you know, how that turns out is not quite as much in my gift as would normally be the case if I'm a chair of an organisation. But I think if you look back on my record of when I start as chair and when I finish as chair of PACES, you'll see that I don't think there's any occasion when diversity hasn't been improved, because I very strongly agree with you that you know, boards and leadership should reflect the societies which they support and operate in.
Right, well, I'm grateful for that response, and I think, as I also said, you know, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm a little more optimistic than perhaps I was. With just a final comment about the monopoly situation in the UK domain space, Nominet does hold a monopoly in terms of providing that. It isn't just about price, it is also concerning value. and security and a host of other things. But certainly if you want a .anything UK domain, then you have no choice at all. And so that is what I was referring to there. Maybe abuse is a little too harsh now that things seem to be changing. But again, I think we're going to have to sit back and wait and see on that.
Well,
I'm encouraged.
I think an old ham like me is not going to agree to anybody talking about a monopoly for lots of reasons, but I understand the point, as I've said. And I really want to concentrate on, how do we show that value to members? So I think it's really important. One of the key things I think for the UK RAC is to look at that value piece, not just on price, but around that. What is it? What is it a member would improve members' businesses? What would help members thrive better? And really believe there's a lot that the UK .UK RAC, or whatever we call it. I know we mustn't call it RAC because our friends at the RAC object, but what is it that the UK RAC is going to help us understand about how to develop good value, create good value for members? I think is really important.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move us on. Andrew, you've been very patient. Unmute and ask your question. Thank you.
So I was going to ask a question about the global pricing comparators, which you've already answered in the previous question. But so this is more of an observation. As a registrar, we're seeing prices in the industry about to skyrocket. I mean, VeriSign at .com are going on a 3-year price hike. In September, they're going up 7%, and they're allowed to put it up 7% a year. That is, other registries are following suit to that. Donuts is increasing the price on everything. Affiliates is increasing the price of .info in January. So I did have, though I liked most of what you've written yesterday, I did have some concerns about that second priority wholesale price review, but hopefully with the UK RAC and if elected, I can give some feedback on that as a registrar. And because we were promised by the last chairman a price freeze for 2 years, and we've just had a price promotion from Nominet on renewals at £2.50 for 2 years. So that's going down very well amongst the membership, and they're all wondering how can Nominet do it for £1.25 a year normally, and then it costs £3.90. So it feels like, as a member reading that line, it was like everything's going to be okay for the next year, but from 2023 we're going to see price skyrocket. So that's that.
Well,
and I believe
I apologise for that. I didn't know the background of what other people were doing. What would we do with the money? I don't understand. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me that works. But look, I've got to do the work. I've set out what I've done. I've explained today what I meant by doing that review. It was just one way I felt I could make sure we were keeping ourselves honest by looking across and saying, what are other people doing? It was not intended to be a signal about price increases.
Okay, yeah, I think it's more of a sort of a product manager's comparison when you compare one product to another product in the industry, and if .com goes significantly higher, you don't want your product to seem cheaper than .com. So it's a very complicated.
I agree, and I'm sure we don't want to be the cheapest in the world, because that seems to attract some really bad behaviours, and I think would worry our regulators, and there'll be all those sorts of things to worry about. So we need to balance all these things. But I just want to explain that I was intending that phrase to be about making sure we were keeping ourselves honest, not about finding the most expensive price and moving the prices up to it.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't think we've got any more raised. Oh, hang on, Steve.
Thanks.
What's your question?
So Andy, welcome.
you.
Good to see you again, and nice to see a good face on the board, and good luck with the role. I think, as has been exhibited through some of the questions, one of the biggest challenges that you currently face is obviously around trust. You know, a lot of the questions that have stemmed have come through the lack of trust, the lack of transparency, and the lack of understanding. The element of, obviously, you can't please all of the people all the time is going to be very much a reality with a membership base as diverse as Nominet. How I'd like to understand your view on how you are going to approach the rebuilding of trust, and also the clarity around decisions that are being made, and making sure that as I always have called it in my links days, taking the membership on the journey. Because right now, I don't think the membership have been taken on a journey for quite a long time in understanding the inner thoughts of decisions.
No, look, I agree entirely, Steve. I think our number one issue at the moment is trust. I think there are other issues we're going to face as we go forward, but right now, I think that's right. I think, and I don't think it's straightforward. I think we have at least half the members who don't engage at all. We then have a relatively active group of people who have very different views, and we need to listen to everybody. What I believe in life is it is the job of the board to listen carefully to everybody, to take the thoughts that are coming from the different segments that it's responsible for, integrate them together, and then go and communicate clearly, not just what's going to be done, but why. And I think you know, we need to be really clear why. And I think some of those things are not so straightforward here. You know, there are all sorts of odd things which are difficult. But I have really quite high confidence that if we can come to the AGM with statements which say, look, we've got this far and we believe therefore we can say these things with confidence. There are these things here which we've still got to work further on, but this is the direction of travel, and we'll update you again. Then we can begin a process of saying, and the reason I'm being tough on the team about being ready for the AGM is, you know, I don't think the members can wait forever on this stuff. I know internally it feels like, you know, February wasn't very long ago, because everybody is quite battered internally. You know, they were really quite surprised by the AGM. They find the whole thing, and we need these good people. So, but I have to put a lot of pressure on them right now, because I need to come with concrete things to say at the AGM, and we need, you know, we need to start building trust on the basis of those concrete things.
I'd agree with that, and I think it's also worthwhile saying, I think operationally the core of the business, the registry element of the business, I think from all the feedback I've ever heard, it is a world-class operation. However, some of the elements around the governance of the organisation, the high-level direction, is what has caused the challenges. So obviously the EGM was called surrounding the actions of the board and the direction of the board, and those individuals on the board. So I think, yeah, you've got a bit of a good challenge there in order to rebuild that with the board in its current composition.
I agree, and I mean, you know, when at the beginning of my note, I talk about the things I believe in, and one of them is providing a stable environment for people. Why do I didn't feel that? Because it would be a disaster if this disagreement on direction that is the fault of Nominet and its board is allowed, leaks into operational instability. It would be absolutely disastrous. So, you know, I spent all morning on information security and operations, even though I was more worried about this meeting than anything else, because I absolutely believe these things are crucial.
Okay,
Susanna,
thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to come to Susanna. You've got your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Andy, I'm not trying to dominate, but just governance is a really important issue, and we haven't said much about possible changes, or let's say, obviously it's very early days for you, but explorations of possible changes and alterations in the governance of the company. And there is some member concern that if the voting cap was changed, which I understand the board can do unilaterally, they might then thereafter use the sort of domination of very large supportive registrars to radically change the governance. And it was one of the criteria in your job apps, well, one of the issues mentioned was possible changes in governance. As somebody who supports the at-large and ordinary registrants, I personally think it's regrettable that those stakeholders don't get more representation in the governance of Nominet. A lot of my colleagues wouldn't agree with that, but that is my position. So there are other stakeholders to be considered as well. But it is worrying to members that we've had one director who on the registrar's notice board has come on and said, oh, well, maybe we should buy out the members by offering them shares which they could sell, and basically dislocate registrar wholesale bargain price from membership. There are lots of different ways of doing it. This is far too early, I'm sure, for you to say, but is governance part of your agenda?
It's going to have to be, I think. I mean, let me be clear. I don't want to get anywhere near it until we've restored trust. And I want to remind everybody one thing. We need a 90% vote. It doesn't really matter what you do to the voting stuff. By the way, I'm not going to change voting before the AGM, I promise, here and now. So, you know, but we need to restore trust. But governance is probably going to have to come up, I think, you know. And the question is, how do we think about that? And I haven't got anywhere near thinking about it yet. The reason I think governance is going to come up is I was rather, taken aback, I think, to get a tweet from a minister, you know, on this issue. We're a £50 million turnover company. I really don't want the attention of the government. I want us to get on and resolve these things amongst ourselves. But I do want to reassure you, to do anything extreme, you need a 90% vote in favour. It doesn't really matter much what you do to you. By the way, if you look at the EGM, big members, small members, they all voted in both directions. So, you know, my instinct is that the voting rights thing is a big worry for people, and I accept that. And, you know, I need to not draw on that. Sooner or later, we'll have to discuss governance. But I think we'd be better to get a very clear future set out, a set of trust amongst ourselves. And there is no way, in my view, the board can go away and do governance under a bush somewhere and come and surprise everybody when you need a 90% vote. So, you know, we'll get there and we'll have a conversation about it at the time, but it's not now.
Thanks, Andy. And just to personalise things, setting aside all the work and all Nominet, when you're not working and you've got quite a lot of roles and responsibilities, do you have hobbies or interests? And
yes, I do. I have cricket. I'm an absolute lover of watching cricket, and I like to travel the world, which I can't do at the moment, and visit lovely wineries and sit down with a winemaker and in the sunshine and talk about how they made their wine.
Try Georgian wine. Georgian wine is outstanding.
I will try it.
So, as a tip from Susanna for everybody there. So, I think, Cyprian, you've got your hand up. Can I just come to you quickly? I'm conscious of time.
Yeah, really quick one. Andy, you and Steve have touched on the transparency element. How important is transparency to you personally, and how important will it be for Nominet going forward? And how far will transparency reach? Will we see, for example, detailed financial results for the past commercial ventures of Nominet, for example?
We are going to have to come clean on some of those issues. I've got to work out how to do that. But I mean, look, we need to be clear on main things, and we also need to understand there are some things we can't spend a lot of transparency. I'm not going to give the whole of the world our cybersecurity plans and things like that. So, you know, there are things that we can be open about, things that I don't think it's in your interest that we're open about or anybody else's. But my instinct is, a member-driven organisation, you need to be treated like shareholders in that sense. You have the governance responsibility as shareholders of a public company. You need to see the numbers. You need to have explained to you what our forward strategy is. You need the things that I'm used to giving to other stakeholders in other organizations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I missed William, who was wanting to come in for a question. Sorry, William.
Yeah, hello.
Thanks, Steve, for pointing it out.
Yeah, my initial attempt was somewhat failed by the fact that another window on a screen somewhere at the back of my virtual computer started to talk, and it sort of got in the way of things, but I eventually found it and switched it off. Greetings, Andy. Nice to see an experienced person with who knows where the BT bodies are buried on the team, because we have all suffered from BT over the last 20 years and just about see it coming into a state where we can be proud of our broadband delivery now that the fibre is getting out faster. I've been in this business since the days of the naming committee, and I've crossed swords with people like Clive Feather. Hands up anyone who's done that before. Well, you've got the scars too then. Very precise is Clive though, and I take my hat off to him. He was absolutely straight as a die through the process. There are many elephants in this particular room that have sat quietly in the corner and that will at some point need to come out and be exercised. There are many serious fundamental issues about names, the internet, the international internet. How is anybody going to sell .uk to the world, which currently hates us because of things like the Eurovision Song Contest and our former colonial activities around the world? I mean, there's no point in trying to sell .uk as an international domain in that respect. We need to think about all those things. And here's the first hand grenade under the table. Should Nominet not actually think about launching a new global top-level domain to take on .com, which is sold out long since and has required almost Bitcoin status for its absurd investment values? So I'm going to be shooting a bunch of things like that in your direction, and I hope that
I shall shoot them back to the UK RAC for advice.
Well, this is about the members and the benefit of the members. I mean, the members have been mentioned many times. There are, as you say, 1,500, half of which are active, and I think over the last 6 months or so, a lot more have been incentivized to be active, and hopefully we'll be able to give them more reasons to be interested and for them to feel that Nominet has a role to play in their future and their business, because, frankly, it's been regarded as something to be left alone quietly and hopefully not to cause too much trouble. It blew up, we've all dealt with it, and we've now got a promising future set in front of us, but it's going to take a lot of work, and you have my full support and deepest sympathy because you've got the hot chair there. Well,
William, thank you for that. I'll use that to sum up, if I may. I mean, look, I quite like hot chairs. I'd get bored otherwise. I really, really believe in the company and the quality of what it delivers and the importance that it has to the UK digital economy. And I'm really committed to restoring trust. I mean, if one thing, comes out that I think we all agree on is somehow we have to restore trust. I know that's my responsibility, not yours. And that is my commitment. And finally, I think a growth agenda can cover the sorts of things William has got. If we're going to have a growth agenda, it needs to be a growth agenda that people want. I don't know whether William's idea is any good or not. Don't get me wrong. I'm good, but it needs to be something that we believe in as a community and want to take forward. And we'll work on those sorts of things over time. But right now, the big number one issue for me is to re-establish trust between the company and its members. And you can expect me to work really, really hard on that. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much indeed.